Hi, today I want to show you how you can add new items into a list inside of Toddle and remove items from that list. And we are kind of like having a variable with a list in it, and we are then appending, meaning adding new items, and deleting, removing items from it. And we don't do this to the database, so we're not calling the database and then doing that. We will have that list on the front end, and then we are doing all those changes on the front end. And then if you want, you can send that new updated list to your back end and then update it, update the structure in there. So let's get right started with it. And we're actually starting with a blank screen here so that we get a chance, to set up the list and set up everything. So let's start actually with an empty list. So let's go to variables in here, and let's call this list as an example. Variables are where we store data that we use on the page, or when we call APIs from that page or that component. So right now we just add an empty array. That's an object, an empty array. That's an empty array. So now we have an empty array, and now we want to render a list based on that empty array. That will be fun. Actually, how about we go to the variable again and add one item just so that we can see that the list rendering is working. Now, in this initial value, you can also go on fx and set it in there. So now we need to set it. So we need to add an array in here. So we can click in here to change the type. And we need to go to data structures, and we want to do array. And we can add like a few empty items in here, just like that. Now, we got a few empty items just for test purposes, and let's try rendering a list with those. So first of all, to get the general layout, let's add a div block in here. And we want to make it width 90%, and then we can add a maximum width of, for example, 25 rem, so to limit how wide it goes. Now, we can add, just for test purposes, a width of a minimum height of 25 rem, just so that we see the element on the page. And now we can go on background and style it a little bit. We can, for example, make it gray 50, give it a border radius of 15 pixels, and give it a border color of gray 200, just like that. And then we also want to make sure that we add some side padding to it, so that the elements that are in it are not just like this. So we add 0.5 rem side padding, and 0.5 rem top and bottom padding, just like that. Now inside of here, we can add our first list item. That will be a div block. So we'll make sure that that div block is width 100%. And just for now, let's give it a height of 5 rem, a minimum height, so that we can see it. So now we got the list item in here, and that list item also should have a padding of, let's do 0.75 rem, and a top and bottom padding of 0.75 rem. So on all sides, 0.75 rem. And now we can go on the background and, for example, give it a background color of white and make the border radius 10 pixels. And we can add a border color of, for example, gray 200 in here. So now we got that. And actually, let's try making it 20. Yeah, that looks very nice. Or maybe 17.5. Oh yeah, that's even better. So we got that now set up. Now inside of here, for this list item, we can add some details. So we can add a mini heading. So let's do heading 4. And this will be name. And then we could add a paragraph under here that will be description, right? Here we go. Now, we would also need to add layout in here for a delete button. So we can add a button in here that will be delete. And then we don't need to have an edit button. That's a little bit more complex. We'll make a separate video about that. But now we got a delete button in here. Now, let's go to Relume icons or any SVG icon library, and let's get a nice delete button. So let's say delete. Here we go. And we got a nice trash bin in here. Let's take that icon small, 24 pixels. And let's go back to Toddle. Let's paste it in the button. Let's delete the delete text. And let's go in the delete button. And let's give it a color of red 100. And let's give it a text color of red 700 as an example. And let's give it a border color, for example, with red 300 so we can see it. Here we go. And then we can give this, actually, let's try this, actually, red 50. Yeah, that's better. And that border color should be red 100. And then we can make the border, for example, 10 pixels. So now we got the delete button, but we want to have it actually aligned on the side so that the delete button is here. So for that, we go on layout and we go to the one going on the side. Now we got it somewhat working. We have to double click on here so it adds it on the other side, and we should center it. Now, this layout is a little bit funky, but we want those still to be under each other. So I go on this name, wrap it in an element that's a div block. It's by default going down. I take this description, copy it, go in this name, the div block holding the name, and paste it in there. So now I got the name and the description. The name should be a little bit bigger maybe. So I can go in the name and I can make that text, for example, 1 rem, or we could do 1.25 rem. And then we would have the name. So we can do my name. And then we would have the description. Now we want a little bit more padding. They're very close to each other, between them. That's what we call a gap. So I can go on layout and we have the gap in here that's under the down and side. In here, we can add 0.35 or 0.25 rem as a gap. And I think the description, we should make it, this is a description that may be a long description. And now what you're seeing is we're having overflow and we have some issues here. So what we need to do is that we need to go on this div here and we should make this width 100%, and we should go in here and make it flex 1. That will solve the issue of having overflow. And then in the div holding it, we should, we don't want them to be very close. So we also add a gap, or we don't need to add a gap in here. We actually don't. If we want to add a gap on here in this div block, we should add a padding on the right side. So I think that's this one. So we do 0.25 rem or let's try 5 rem. Yeah, that's the right side. Let's do 1 rem padding so that it won't touch that button directly in here. So now we got that set up and we got the name and the description, but I think the description should be a little bit more, a little bit less highlighted. So let's go on text and let's make this gray 600 so it's a little bit lighter, and we could give it a size of 14 pixels. So now we got our item and that looks nice, and now we can also delete the minimum height, and now we can render this based on the list. So now let's go on this element and let's go to repeat, and now we'll base it on the list variable that could also come from your database. Now as you can see, they're very close to each other. So we need to go to the div that holds them and add a gap of 0.5 rem as an example, so they're not kissing each other. And I think we should add a little bit more of a side padding too. Maybe we should try 1 rem, or actually maybe only 1 rem on this side, or actually it looks good though. Let's keep it as is. And how about we make this a little bit more round? So we would do this 13 pixels. Here you go. Or maybe 15 pixels. That looks very nice. And then we can make this 20. And then we got the 20 back. Yeah, look at that. So that looks very nice. And we got the my name. And now we would need to set, those items in here. So what we could do is we need to go to the variable and we need to get some test data in here. So in here, in this array, we would add an object that is a flexible data structure. That would be name, right? That's the name. And then we do description, just like that. Name could be first name, or let's do NoCode Pro Code, and then description, the best place to learn and build faster in Toddle and Xano. Just like that. So we got our first item. Now we need to make, this is already rendered, but the text is not dynamic. So we go inside of the H4, and inside of the H4 we have the text element. We go on the FX on that text, we click on here, go to the repeat item, and we go on name. Now it dynamically takes the name of the list item. We do the same thing with the padding. We go to the padding, to the text inside of the padding, we go on FX, we go inside of the repeat item, and we map it to the description. Now as you can see, we got this working. Now we want to make it so that we can add to it. So let's take this and wrap this in an element. And in this element, in here, okay, I should then make this actually 100%, no fixed width. Maybe we make the height 25 rem fixed, and then we'll just go on layout and make it scrollable so that people can scroll down and up. And then we got this working. And then, but then this should be width 90% and the maximum width of 25 rem, just like that. So now we got this working, and we can add this. And now what we want to do is we want to be able to add more items in here. So what we can do in here, we'll add a form that lets us on submit add a new item. So we got a form in here, and that form will have an input for the name and another input that we will add after we got it styled for the description. So let's go to this input here, and let's make the background color of the input. For example, let's make it fully white. And actually, how about we style the form first? Let's give it a side padding of 0.5 rem and a top and bottom padding of 0.5 rem. Now, we want to actually go to the element holding this, and we give it a gap of 0.5 rem so that we have a nice gap between those, so it's a separate element. We go in the background color here, make it gray 50. We go to the border, make the border 20, and we give the border a color of gray 200, as you can see. I really like gray 200. And actually, how about we make this actually 15 pixels, because that will be too intense. Or actually even 10. Yeah, that looks good. Or maybe 13. I think 13 is a sweet spot. Exactly. Beautiful. Now we make this input, for example, 100%. Just like that. And then we'll make the height 3 rem. Or we could make the height auto. And we'll add a gap, a top and bottom padding on that input of 0.75 rem. And a side padding of 0.75 rem, just like that. Now we go in here in this input and we add a border, and that border will be a gray 200, and we can make this now 10 pixels. Now we got our input field, and now we need to bind this input field to a variable so that we can get the data that is in the input field. So we go to the variable and we call this name input as an example, or we can just call it name. And in here, that will be empty. Now we go to this input and bind it to the name variable. Now we can copy that input field, add it in the form for the description, and I can change the tag to make this text area. And actually now I broke everything. So let's keep it in input. And let's reload. Never change an input to a text area in Toddle, by the way. That sometimes causes issues. Let's actually try again, making it a text area. And let's try reloading the page. Yeah, not working. Let's make this a div. Fixed. And let's make this div. Let's just make it an input. We'll make it simple today. Let's make this an input. Here we go. Beautiful. And then we can also always set its height or something like that. So we got an input, and now we can set their name, and this needs to be now unbinded because we will need to bind it to the description variable so that we can store the description. So we go in here, description, that will be our description variable. And we will now go to this input and bind it to the description variable. Now we go on this input, and this will be name, and then this input, the placeholder. Yeah, they're moved for some reason. Interesting. This placeholder will be description. Just like that, we got name, description. Now we go on this form, and we go and add a gap of 0.5 rem. And now we got that in here, and we should also make this 15 pixels so it looks nice. And we could maybe even make this 17. Yeah, that looks nice. So we got those things working. And now we're going to add a button in this form that will then submit the form, and we'll make it width 100%. And we'll give it a border radius of 10 pixels, or maybe of 8 pixels. And we'll give it a top and bottom padding of 0.75 rem and a side padding of 0.75 rem. And we'll make it centered. And we call add to list. Oh, add to my list. Just like that, add to my list. Then we can give this a background color, for example, of gray 900. And we'll give it a nice shadow so it looks very elegant. Here we go. So we got this now set up, add to my list. And I think we should actually make this 1 rem. Here we go. And then we can make it a little bit rounder of like 10 pixels so it looks very nice and modern. Now we got name, description, add to my list. So now we got this constructed. Now we want this to work so that we can actually add this item to the list. So let's add a name. Oh, I even got my hover. Nice. Let's add Andreas. And oh, I got to go in this input field here. And the text color needs to be gray 700. And in here, the text color needs to be gray 700 as well. So let's add Andreas. And let's say the genius behind Toddle. Now add to list doesn't work. It's just submitting the form because we have to do something. So let's first go to the form and let's go to events and let's go on the form event. Let's go on submit. Now we have prevent default. Now if I click this, it's not reloading the page. So that's a good step. And now I want to go in here and let's add Andreas, the genius behind Toddle, just like that. Now, let's go in here, and on submit event, I want to now add this in here, because now if I click on add to list, it's not adding it. So what we need to do is we need to go on submit, and we need to go and set the list variable. And now we're going to have some data manipulation to do. So we are setting the list variable, but we actually don't want to set it. We want to add an item to it. So what we need to do is we need to set the variable, because we can only set it with a new value. We can't say add to variable. We can only do set variable. So when we set it, we want to go to the current value that the variable has, that is an array, and we want to add the append filter to add a new object to it, to that array, with name, right? And the name will come from the name variable, Andreas, and description that will come from the description variable. And now as you can see, it would take the current array that we have and append, meaning add a new object at the end of that array if this is run. And this is being ran if we click on here. So now if I click and say add to my list, it would add it. But before we do that, after we added it, I want to clear the values. So in here I go on name and I'll just make it empty, and I go on description and I'll make it empty. So it clears the input. Now if I go to add to my list, it'll add Andreas, it'll clear it out. So now we got 2 in the list. Now we want to make sure that we can actually delete items from the list. So we go on this delete button and we go on the click event and we go on plus and we go on list and we do the same thing. We add the current value of list. We'll add the delete filter and the path will be, we will target array and we will target the current index of the item I clicked on. Because this here is an array, normally a path would be like in an object name. So we would do .name. But since we have an array, the path is the index of the array item. And you can target the path of the index in the array item by adding an array, and the first item in the array, there's only one item, that will be the index of the item I clicked on. So now if I click on delete Andreas, Andreas is deleted. Now I need to go in here and remove the hovers because they don't look good. Here we go. But now if I click on NoCode ProCode, that is deleted as well. And now what we could actually do is we could add an item in here, a div block, for example, like this, where I can add a heading saying no items left. And I can add like an emoji or something in there. Oh, no items left. Here we go. And now I can go in this div here and I could make it a little bit bigger. For example, I could make it 2 rem. Maybe a little bit too much, 1.5 rem. Just like that. And I could make it in the center. No items left. And then I only want to show this if this is empty. So I go on this div holding it. That's actually this div here. So we could make this div also with 100%, height 100%, and just make it centered here. And then we go to this div here, and that shouldn't be centered. That should just be normal. And now let's see. And then I go on this div that's in here, and I go to attributes, show, and I only want to show it when the list, the size, meaning the length of the list, equals 0, meaning it's empty. Now, if I add one, NoCode ProCode, and let's do join today at nocodeprocode.com, and I add it to the list, it removes that the list is empty, and I have it in here. And then I can add Andreas, purchase the paid plan for Toddle.dev today. And I can add it to my list, and we got it to our list. And then we do Vakas. He is just pure fun. Let's add like, here we go. Oh, he's just pure fun. And we can add it in here. He is just pure fun. And we got those in here. And then if I want to delete Andreas, sorry, Andreas, I click on delete. Andreas is deleted because we filter him out with the delete function. I want to delete Vakas, and Vakas is removed. And I copy the link for nocodeprocode.com, open their website, and join the membership right now. So thank you so much for watching. This is how you append and delete items inside of Toddle. I hope this really gave you a great insight on how those things work. And now then, you could take this variable here that, and it's responsive. You could take this list variable and then, like send it to your backend and loop over it and do all that stuff with it. And if you need more help with, doing all that stuff with it, this is where we have the NoCode ProCode membership, the NoCode ProCode community. It's the best place to learn and build faster in Toddle and Xano. So if you're using Toddle and Xano, you'll get a great value out of that membership. I think you'll also get a great value only if you use Toddle, but if you don't use Xano, like, at someday you'll use Xano, because, you can go different paths, but you can't go across Xano. You have to use Xano if you are doing very powerful things, as it just nicely complements, what you can do in Toddle. Xano is like Toddle, but for the backend, because it's just logically complete, but simple at the same time, which not a lot of no-code tools do. There are ones that are logically complete. They're very complex. They're hard to do. But Xano is just the best tool out there. There's nothing as it, and they just raised $20 million. So they are a secure company. You don't have to be concerned that they'll shut down one day. So if you want to learn more about that, go to nocodeprocode.com. We got great templates and Toddle boilerplates. We got step-by-step courses, a whole component library, daily office hours to help you just push past those roadblocks, pre-made Xano snippets so you don't have to do the complex loops and all that stuff. And we got exclusive tutorials, and everybody who joined just loves it. And, it's made for you. If you're watching this, it's made for you. We have AI transcribed all courses. You get a mobile app where you can have that. We post daily new content. It's made to be understandable, and everything that we show in there and teach, you get a template you can look at. You can, just piece it together yourself, copy and paste some of the things I did. And, it's just a way to make, development faster with all the templates. Setting up Stripe can take weeks to get it really working if you don't have all that understanding and troubleshooting, and then maybe the payments work or maybe they don't. We have it all pre-made for you based on my experience working with those tools, and you don't have to worry, about those baseline things that should work. You just worry about your idea and getting that idea on the market, and we have the tools in there and the templates and the stuff and the courses to help you make the rest 80% faster. And then, it's pretty simple to join. You just make a little video application or an audio message now, because a lot of people were a little bit shy. So I was like, we can now also do audio messages. And then within 12 hours, I'll just listen to it. And then, we'll just have you join so we know you're not an AI or something. And then, you get the link and you'll be able to onboard and join the membership. And I would love to see you on there. Even Web3 developers love it. Not saying that, we would like you to join if you build meme coins, but we don't discriminate against people who build meme coins as well. So if you build meme coins and you need Toddle, and you need help in your web app, we'll have the courses to help you how to make API calls. What you do with the API calls is up to you. And, it's $79 a month. It's very affordable if you consider that I normally charge $500 an hour. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. And, maybe see you inside of the community. But regardless on if you join or not, thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel. I really appreciate that. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.